Welcome back to Healthy Bites. Pomegranate and pista are really common ingredients across the Middle East, and as I grew up in the Middle East, they were featured commonly in my diet. So when I thought of what cake I would like to make, these two had to feature in it. So this is my P-square cake. The ingredients are atta, curds, powdered sugar, pista that has been powdered, oil, any unrefined oil that you can find, honey, salt, baking soda and pomegranate. So before you start making any cake, make sure two things are done. That you have a pan that is greased, which means that I've just put a little bit of butter or oil around it and then put atta in it, and this will ensure that the cake doesn't stick to it, and also that your oven is preheated, and that means before you start making your batter, switch on your oven. This is at 180 degrees, and by the time we make it, the oven will be nice and hot. So as soon as the cake batter goes in, it'll start rising. So the first step in our P-square cake, we're going to be making an eggless version. So all that means is that put a little bit of baking soda and some curds and just shift that around, and that will make it rise and become nice and fluffy. And I'm going to use honey. So honey is a very natural sweetener. It has not as many calories as we think it has, and it's very commonly used across the Middle East. So it had to feature in this cake. So honey and oil, and just whisk them together until nicely combined. Now the reason I like to use honey in this cake as compared to say sugar is honey is less refined. Honey is a lot more natural and therefore healthier for us. So anytime you're cooking with something, you're cooking with a particular ingredient, try and look at how much processing it has gone through. Try and see if there's something that you can use that is less processed, that will give you the same kind of taste and texture. Okay? So once this is combined, let's add in our curd and baking soda. So I added baking soda only to a small bit of the curds, not to all of it. Just I found that over the years when I've done this recipe, I've tried out different variations, and this variation turned out the best. So I'm going to add in the curds, just whisk it together. This is a really easy recipe. It's just about combining all the ingredients, putting it into the oven and letting it bake by itself. So put that in and then put in the pista. Now pista is one of the oldest known nuts to mankind. So it obviously has a lot of good natural things happening around it, and more importantly, if it's one of the oldest nuts that was growing in the world, it means that it was meant to grow here. It's not artificially brought in. So it's extremely natural and good for us, and I love that it gives this cake a little green tinge. So once that is in, I'm going to put in the atta. Now I don't use maida while baking for the simple reason that maida is processed. It is refined, that extra step as compared to atta. And for this recipe I do use atta, but there are some cake recipes where I use jawar or ragi, and that makes the cake significantly healthier. At this step, I'm going to add in the rest of the baking powder and a pinch of salt. I've always been told by my grandmothers that a pinch of salt makes everything taste sweeter. So you can see that it's quite hard at this point. So what I'm going to do is add a little bit of water just to make it come to the right consistency. Now this is not a batter that you want to mix a lot, because if you mix it too much, you'll be left with a dense cake which is not very nice. So this is the kind of texture that you want, that it'll just fall off the whisk like that. That's perfect. And now just spoon it into your prepared tin. I'm just making a rectangle. You can make whatever design you want. You can even make cupcakes out of this. But I love that green of the pista. And once you put it into the oven at 180 degrees and let it cook for about a minimum of 30 minutes. Check at the end of 30 minutes. Put in a skewer, and if it comes out clean, then your cake is done. You can pull it out and I'll show you how to do the icing. So the cake, as you can see, is nice and done. It has a little give on top, so when you feel it, more importantly, when you stick a knife or a skewer through it and it comes out clean, it's ready. So while it's cooling, let's make the topping. Now this is icing sugar, just powdered sugar. I have tried the same recipe with jaggery and honey, but I found that the little creamy part on top doesn't come out as well, and therefore I went back to powdered sugar. Okay. So what you need to do at this point is just add a tablespoon of dahi at a time and just mix it in. The idea is to have a nice thick gooey topping So don't add all the curds at once, then you'll be left with a runny decoration. And to season it, little bit of salt, that'll just balance out the flavors, and a little bit of cardamom. You think of cardamom and you think of the Middle East. So just bring this together and that's perfect. That's exactly the kind of texture that you want. When you lift it up, it'll do this. So then what happens when you put this icing on top of the cake and then set it in the fridge for maybe 5-10 minutes, it'll have a beautiful, beautiful layer on top. And you'll notice that when we made the cake, there wasn't as much honey in it, there wasn't as much sweetness, purely because this icing is there to balance that out. So you've got the nuttiness from the pista that is there inside of it, and of course all the nutrients that the pista has. And now we're going to put this icing and top it off with pomegranates. So pomegranates are known to be antioxidants. They're of course a superfood, but they're also known to help prevent a number of cancers like prostate cancer, breast cancer, and they're a huge help in things like weight management, diabetes management. Pista is actually something that's recommended by a lot of nutritionists around the world to say that if you have a couple of pistas soaked in some water every day, it'll help you manage that weight because it helps you stave off that hunger. It'll keep you nice and full, because of which you won't find the need to keep munching in the middle. So pista is great for that. Pomegranate is excellent for that. And if you know someone who's bleeding really heavily, as in the menstrual cycle is very heavy, then all you need to do is eat pomegranates, and it's one of the things that helps to stop excessive bleeding. Okay, just marble that down and decorate it with pomegranates. Sometimes if it's a really special occasion, if it's a birthday, then what I like to do is cut the cake in half, put some of this icing in the middle, put pomegranates in the middle, and voila, what a brilliant birthday cake.